Hi, this is Alicia with Perform Mentor, and this is another heuristic podcast. Today we're talking to Walt Brown. Now, Walt is one of the original godfathers of EOS, and some of you may know what that means, but to others, it's the entrepreneurial operating system that is very, very popular, and the creator of the organizational cognizance model, which I'm sure that we'll get a chance to talk about. He has authored several books, including Death of the Org Chart and many, many others. Welcome, Walt. Anything you'd like to add to that?
Not a whole lot. That was pretty good. Thank you. My belief is, though, is if I can wake up every single day and work with organizations and help them remove organizational confusion and dysfunction for the individual contributor, I've done a pretty good job. So that's sort of my goal.
That's a good purpose. I think it's meaningful for a lot of people.
Thank you, Alicia.
I guess, entertaining. Well, anyway, today's heuristic is one of the more complex ones. It's deceptively simple. It's apply the trust algorithm. And the trust algorithm on its face looks very straightforward. It's accountability must equal authority and must equal capability. And the more you keep those things in sync, the more you have an organization that can engender and encourage trust, or in the very least, not provide unnecessary reasons to break it. So that's the trust algorithm. I know that this came up recently in our conversation. We were over at your office with my team. I was just curious, sort of like what your first take on this idea is and how you make sense of it.
So in other words, my question was, is it a full circle where accountability must equal authority, and authority must equal the capability or capacity?
Capability.
Thank you.
Is the word that I chose. You could say capacity. So,
well, I think it's an important thing. So the capability is, for me, with capacity, it's like how much time do you have? How much volume of space do you have? Where capability is actually your skills and your abilities. It's got to be attached with the capability. And then it has to basically go back to understand what your accountability are. It's almost circular. Is that right? Or is it just linear?
Yeah. So they all have to, they would equal each other. And the more that they get out of sync, the more you have predictable dysfunctions that emerge, right?
And this is the trust, or is this one of the trust pieces?
This is, I call it the trust algorithm.
Right.
Yeah. Well, a lot of really good stuff about trust is out there, and very often it emphasizes the interpersonal components of what it takes. What are the tones? How do I approach someone in a way that's going to be encourage trust rather than break it? And this isn't about that, and it doesn't contradict that. What it says is, how do you build an organization in a way that doesn't introduce artificial reasons to make trust harder to accomplish?
Yeah. And so I'm looking at it the same way that you are, is, levels of trust could almost equal the how you fit into a tribe. So tribal trust, so to speak, and if I'm a solid part of the tribe, then I have higher levels of trust, higher levels of certainty and status, et cetera. So I like this. So that's a lot of what, I'm dealing with in the world, is around engagement. We use the word accountability, but it's exactly what we're talking about is, if you know what you're accountable and how you fit, it's clear what your domain and authority are, and then that aligns with your capabilities or your ability to achieve more capabilities, then you're going to feel very secure in your status and where you are in the organization, and you're going to be more open with regard to your ideas and perspectives and communication, and not like if you're uncertain about what you're truly accountable for or responsible for, and your domain and authority are not really clear, and you're given something you have no idea how to do, you're going to kind of have a tendency to keep your mouth shut, right? And not speak. And without the ability to debate, like Lencioni talks about, no trust, we're going to have any debate, Yeah.
You're right. Oh, yeah. You can't trust that anything you say will be interpreted in a way that's helpful or useful, or you might be afraid of speaking up.
And then the key here is, so if you imagine a whole group where everybody is super clear what they're accountable for and what their authority is and the domain they're bringing, it, you're looking across the table, what the what the accountability and the authority is, and you know they have the capability to do the work, then everybody knows where each other's coming from, and
Right.
you know the perspectives are shared, and yeah, I think it's a great little algorithm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, so for example, you know, if accountability and authority, which some people, you know, might say, well, aren't those kind of the same thing? Not necessarily. Like you said, accountability is I am on the hook for whether this goes good or bad, and I
Yep.
suffer the consequences or the rewards thereof, right?
Right.
Whereas the authority is I have the positional authority or positional power to make decisions
Yeah.
in terms of how resources are used. Now, if I've got accountability for something, but I don't have the authority to make decisions that enable it, like how much do I, you know, trust the situation? How much do I trust the organization? It breaks trust.
You're going to have the autonomy to do the work. Absolutely. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Accountability, but I have no authority. Well, what am I really accountable for? You know, nothing.
Well, it depends if you could lose your job or you have an incentive bonus that's tied to it or what have you.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess maybe you could share a little bit about the organizational cognizance model and maybe find some threads of commonality, which I think exists.
I think we can, absolutely. So, and so behind me are a couple different models that I use, and there's this is an employee engagement model on the left-hand side, basically a trust model, but trying to make sure that everybody in the organization can say that they, you know, I belong in this tribe, which means there's I believe in where the company's going, and, you know, I'm clear what I'm accountable for and how I'm measured, heard, developed, listened. So you see the list there. But so the accountable is a word, and where we're coming together here in this organizational cognizance model, where it came from was we come in and we work with companies and they do an employee engagement survey using these 7 words as questions, and they'll start off doing 2 surveys a year. Typically, they might do more, but it's usually 2. And when they start off, the word accountable, where they say understand and embrace what I'm accountable for, starts out as a higher number on a scale of 1 to 10. And then as we survey over time, that number has a tendency to drop as people become more aware of what the question is asking. And it's asking exactly what you're saying. Hey, I know what I'm accountable for, but I really have the authority to do this accountability and to have the capabilities to get there. And as they become more aware of what the question is really asking, the number comes down. And then, so after we saw that pattern a little bit, it was like, what do we mean by accountable? And so we went out, and I mean, everything we do comes from basically talking to the individual contributors, and got together with them and said, you know, what would make you feel like you're accountable? To make you feel like you're really aware or cognizant about what's going on with what you're accountable for. And it came up with these questions over here. The folks were like, I want to know the purpose of my job. I want to know all the roles and positions I'm part of. I want to know who I report to and who I'm coached by. And if I got a mentor, who that is. What are the teams I'm part of and meetings. Entities are like contracts or customers who I'm accountable and have authority to talk to. You know, what are my objectives that fit to the overall, and what are my short-term, like, controllable key results? What are the skills I need to have? Capabilities. What are the systems that I'm logging into? What are the workflows or processes that I'm participating in? And then the, you know, policies and procedures, adding on to departments lately. But, you know, and the idea is, you imagine if somebody was to say, hey, let me explain your job to you, and they went through and hit all these 14 points, you'd be not just aware, but you'd be cognizant. Hey, wow. And so you want me to tell you the cognizant story? Where the word
sure. That's a $20 word, just like heuristic is. So.
Yeah. I think it's like a $10 word. Heuristic. It's way up there.
My word's more expensive. Oh no.
But so, you know, you step back, and when somebody's part of an organization, that they're aware that they're part of an organization. And I like to break it down like we have 5 senses. You know, we can feel, and we can hear, and we can smell, and we can taste, and we can see. And, like, you know, so if we feel heat and we hear something kind of crackling, we smell smoke and we taste like smoke in our mouth, and then we open our eyes and we see a flame, we're aware that there's fire.
Mm-hmm.
But when we know that the fire that we're aware of is actually the cozy little fireplace in the den and not an electrical fire that's going crazy in the wall, that's
Right.
called cognizance.
Gotcha.
Just a job with this job description is just creating awareness. It's not letting a person really understand what they're truly accountable for, what their domain and authority are, and what capabilities they need. So the model is, we use this with companies to help them diagram their organization and really flesh out what people
Yeah.
are capable for.
Well, I'm looking at that list behind you, and I'm looking at I am heard. And one thing that I'm recalling is a recent conversation with one of my team members, or one-on-one, and that was a question that I asked her. I was like, thing is, she's always very open, so maybe it was like an easy question for me to ask, but it's like, making sure that you're heard. And like, going back to organizational cognizance and the trust algorithm, if I know I'm heard, part of that is knowing where I need to go to if I have something to offer or suggest or change, or if I need help with something. If I don't know how to go about doing that, how can I be heard?
Yeah, and think about the remote organization nowadays, or a really big organization, and we're communicating electronically. It's hard to know. There's no more going in the hallway and knocking on a door. Hey, you got a second? And you get this kind of navigational assistance. It's and then we're so spread out nowadays that the listening channels, the communication channels, kind of come on and go off, and we got to know when the channel's open and when we can speak into that channel or not. And it's like, turning on the radio, I'm a stupid example, trying to broadcast at 2 a.m. in the morning, nobody's listening. Well, the channel turns on at 8 and it's open until 9. That's when you call it. That's
Right.
That's sort of the idea of heard. And it's really, really important for the organization to establish when and how it listens, so that people know when the channels are open. I'm kind of going a little bit of a tangent here, but the classic hell on earth is that text is always open, email is always open, and people feel like they're expected to be checking emails and texts all weekend long. Well, that's not fair. That's just clarity around being heard, and truly about accountability and authority and domain, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see how there might be. It's a perception thing, right? So I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of leaders who are like I'm just catching up over the weekend. I have zero expectation that anybody gets back to me until Monday, but if they don't say that, people might assume something different.
Yeah, you get an email from the boss that this crazy person, Alicia, is awake at 2:30 in the morning on Sunday night, sending emails. Do you need to respond to that email or not? But if you say to them, I'm going to be, your email, your inbox might be loaded up on Monday morning because I'm working on Sunday, but my expectation is that you're really getting back to me on Tuesday. I mean, it's very important.
It is. So one thing you brought up is the remote hybrid workforce, and I know that's come up a number of times when we've talked about like, what do we think the long-term impact is to so many people going remote where they had never been remote before? How much of that sticks, right? And how much of it will revert?
Oh, it's a permanent shift where, a lot of my clients, you're in the world of HR and I'm doing a lot of structure stuff around who can be in what seat or job. And, they're always asking the question, every single job we're saying, can that be done remote? Can I hire somebody in Missouri? Do we have to be looking locally? So it's almost like through this work we're doing through the cognizance model is we're creating a full inventory of all the roles that people are playing inside the organization. And when you have that full inventory, you can actually say, well, hey, the job was described as this, there's 12 roles that this job has been playing. Well, 8 of them are actually remote capable roles, and these 4 are local roles. Well, when you have that inventory, you can actually start to go, okay, let's grab 4 from here that are remote, and you create a job or a position that allows that to happen.
That's
That makes
yeah, I was gonna say that's an incredibly valuable process, or that you offer that you can go through and figure that kind of stuff out. I think otherwise people sort of just get stuck thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Yeah, just the all the invisible roles that people are playing, during the day. They just get lost. You got to have a way to go through and easily facilitate it out and keep them up to speed. It's a lot of the model.
Yeah.
Clarity around accountability and authority,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Let me take this a little bit further. So you're sitting there going, okay, I understand my accountability, I understand my authority, I understand my capability.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just for the job, it's really made up of all the roles that you're playing. So I understand the authority and the what this is, the purpose of this role. I understand what my authority is and I have the capability. Check. You go to the next role. Well, wait a minute, I don't have the capability here. What can we do for you to get the capability? So it's really role-based that attached to jobs is where all the action happens. And we get lost when we do this sort of, it's almost like a stereotype with a job, right? It's not deep enough. Yes. Fun to think about and to do.
That's a real flip in terms of like how you look at people think that, okay, here's a job title. We got to ask this. Like, well, if I create a job title and you put it in a system, can it tell us what the market pay rate is for it? And we're like, maybe kind of, sort of, but probably not exactly.
Yeah, because there's going to be some roles that are attached to it that might be, that job description might have a couple of really expensive roles attached, and it might have some roles in another organization that aren't part of the job, right?
Yeah. So there's like, business development is one, for example, that's very broad and present in most businesses, but exactly what it entails and
what it
one
pays
industry
might be tied to, if your objective is to bring in $10 million of gross margin dollars a year, it's probably going to pay more than the objective of bringing in $200,000 of gross margin. That was a little bit of a tangent. That was my nerd accounting world working.
What did you say, that you're a nerd?
Accounting world.
Nerd accounting world.
Boiling down from the touchy feely to the dollars and cents.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, and analysis and then the human intuition. Those are two partner capabilities that we all have. Well, it looks like we're coming up on. Do we have a hard stop, or do you have more that you'd like to share?
But I think it's whatever is right for you. Probably coming up. You probably pulled a ton out. I could keep going, but I think you've done a great job of, making me think. It's been awesome.
Well, great. I made the great Walt Brown think. I know that, Walt, you make me think. I believe that anytime that I have a sincere compliment that I notice, that I want to give it, and I think those of us that are so driven, so that we do things that maybe warrant these compliments, might be uncomfortable receiving them.
That's why we all are very uncomfortable.
I can see that. But I feel the same way when I listen back at some of these conversations when the other party says something to me about, I'm like, oh.
But when you see the inside of this, I do love this. If you don't have clear accountability and you're not delegating the true authority, and you're not making sure the individual has the capability, then they're going to come to the table. There's going to be low levels of trust, period.
Yeah.
Absolutely with you. It takes hard work to get to it.
Yeah.
You can be done.
Yeah, there's an analog that I've never seen a personality conflict that isn't at least in large part a organizational clarity issue.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Right. So the technical term is when you feel like somebody's peeing on your tree. You don't really appreciate that in the organization. So that's technical term.
Thanks for the visual.
That creates confusion and dysfunction, with what you were talking about there.
It's like, why are you doing that? Don't do that.
Oh, yeah. I won't go any further in terms of describing that for the, I guess you could probably cut that if you want to.
Okay. Not cut anything. Yeah. We're just going to let the conversation roll. Now, you also brought up something in another conversation that relates to capability in terms of not just do I have the training, do I have the knowledge, am I interested in doing this kind of work, but different scopes of problem solving that come naturally. Would you be interested in sharing a little bit of that? Remember I'm talking about?
What I said about scopes.
You talk about the levels, kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh yeah, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 model, which is kind of a lot of fun. And so, like when you're looking for a person to be on your team, and where this came from was back in the day, I sold my companies and I hung my shingle as a business coach, and I was coaching CEOs. I had 36 clients, and almost all of them just said, gosh, Walt, if I just had a really good number 2. And what they're saying is that they're number 1. So think Star Trek, number 1, number 2. And then you go further out and say, well, what's a 2? I'm not sure. What's a 3? I'm not sure. What's a 4? I'm not sure. What's a 5? Oh, I can tell you what a 5 is. A 5 is a tasker. You give them something to do. They go out and they come back and say, hey, what's next, boss? So you're always having to direct them all day long. But they're good at doing their tasks. A 4 is actually a 5 who can manage their own day, put together their tools, put together their work, plan their day, and basically do the work and deliver good results. You don't have to do a whole lot of managing with them. And so think about a really good salesperson, a really good technician. They come in and they just do a great job, a great 4. And then a 3 is a 4 who can lead and manage other 4s. And a lot of times we have those people in our organization, and they're good. But they're still more like operationally focused. And one of the big problems or mistakes we can make is we take this great 4, our best salesperson, and try to make them sales manager. And they, another technical term, they suck at it and they hate it. So we kind of have put them into something where we might have given them the domain and they clear what their authority is, but they have no capability to do that work. So, they just don't see the big picture, so to speak. And then a 2 is somebody who thinks just like a number 1, is a great 3, can do technical work and get tasks done, but they're thinking like the business owner, but they're right behind them, not out in the wind. They're the one, they don't want to catch the bugs in their teeth. They really don't want to have their name signed on something. They think just like a business owner. And, so looking around your organization and saying, do we need a 4 in that seat with these roles, or is a 5 okay? Or do we need a 3 that's kind of doing 4 and management work, or do we really need a 2 who's capable of doing the work, but is thinking more like an owner? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I found that like having that nomenclature, that it can increase the clarity in which you can identify what the need is, because that's a deep part of the trust algorithm.
Kind of a heuristic in a way.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. So if I'm in a role that demands, call it 3-level problem solving, I need to build a system that delivers on this thing, and I need to figure out who's doing what and when. Right. And that's not something that I do.
Yeah, 3 is very capable of going, what's the system look like, who's doing what and when, where 4 can only see their part of the system.
Right.
System thinking, absolutely. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So you won't have trust. So here's what would happen is that, let's say you put a 2 into a 3 role, then others won't trust because they'll commit to doing things that they can't seem to figure out how to deliver on time, or people that are in the system don't feel like they've got the full autonomy to do their part because they feel a little bit micromanaged. So these are the sorts of dysfunctions that happen as a result of that kind of mismatch. On the other hand, if you put a 2 into a 3 role, they're
earlier example was a 3 and a 2 role.
Yeah, well,
Now
a 2 and a 3 role.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you had it perfect because that was you were thinking because a 3 is going to be more of a micromanager than a 2.
Oh, sorry, a 4, a 4. So okay, so my problem is that your numbers are the reverse opposite of
Elliott Jax.
So I'm more familiar with Elliott Jackson, so I'm switching my numbers. So yeah, so the 4, who's somebody who's like a supervisor and can build processes and kind of self-manage. They don't build the system, they get put in a role like you described that requires building the system, then they're not going to be able to deliver, and they'll get frustrated because they don't feel like they have what they need in order to do it. And they might say things like, I just need more people. Right. The people in the team might feel micromanaged.
That's right.
Because that person's not sure how to give the right kind of context and establish the system so that they can succeed.
Yeah.
But they can come in and like start doing it with them side by side, which doesn't feel great if that's your job.
Not for a good 4, because a good 4 wants to be told what to do, where their objective is, and they'll kind of figure it out.
Yeah. So, but if you put a 2 into a 3 role, so this is somebody who can integrate kind of your number 2 person in an organization. They can integrate across the different systems and get, as long as they're pointed in a purposeful direction, they know how to orient things. But if you put them into a 3 role, they're going to expand into other areas of the business where they maybe not be welcome.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, and they're going to want more. They're going to become bored.
They'll become bored. Yes. So these are like when you have that kind of mismatch, and these kind of things happen all the time.
And it's nuanced, it's not full, but the easiest one to see is when you have a 4 trapped in a 3. That's what
that happens a lot.
Yeah, it happens a ton of times. As we start to grow our businesses, we take our little mini superstar and try to make them something they aren't. And, they're a great wide receiver. Now we're trying to make them quarterback. You can't do that.
A great software developer, great salesperson, and now they're supposed to be managing people, and they're like, I hate it.
Yeah, I hate it. Yeah, I'm miserable.
Don't make me do this.
Right. And a lot of times, if we got a really good high trust organization, and we do break it down into the roles, you can say, well, which one of these roles is just you're not fired up about? And they go, I really don't like that leading and managing role. Can I please have that off? And take that off of them, and then they just blossom, and they become more valuable to the organization than they would be as a manager.
Yeah, I mean, having permission by virtue of going through this organizational cognizance process, by having the permission to say that, I think is incredibly empowering for people, because very often they think that's the only way I can grow in an organization.
Yeah, and so through the model, if you notice, there's the coaching and the mentoring. That's not the same thing as a reports to. Reports to is like a boss, directing. But we get a lot of subject matter experts who are 4s, and they take on a coaching role. Very valuable, training, and and it's known that here's somebody who's in this role, and they want coaching in that role. Well, it's tied to the subject matter expert 4 who owns coach role, and so they know to go to. Hey, I got a question about this role. And the person knows they're coming, they know they're linked. And so the door's open, whether it's, virtual or the real door.
Yeah.
Linking that. So that's that coach piece. Sometimes 4s can be great mentors. You don't have to be a boss to be a great mentor.
It can be like an area specific mentor. Like I've worked 25 years in this particular arena, and I know it inside and out and backwards.
Right. And if you're interested in going down this path with the company, I'm a great mentor. So, that's kind of getting that out. But it's not the same thing as being a, holding people accountable, holding them responsible boss. Reports.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is deep work, but it's, it's all just right there. It sounds deep, but it's just right below the surface. The people doing the work can answer these questions super fast. You can.
It seemed, what I've noticed is that, like with these reframes and with the way that you're presenting things, like when people see it, they're like, how do I how did I miss this?
Yes, yes, just right there. Just, you know,
It's
but
kind of
I
like,
think, yeah, wow. But where it comes from is just working with a lot of client teams into getting deep into their issues and trying to figure out, what's the problem? Why do we keep tripping over the same route? It's because it's just people aren't clear with how you're structured.
yeah. Well, that and the way that your brain works is you like to connect dots and find patterns across different systems. So
Yeah, that's my number 3 strength finders is connectedness. And so they say one of the problems with that is you can see patterns where they don't exist. But hopefully
yeah,
this is
I mean, I'm guilty of that too. I think connectedness, or last time I took it, came at like a number 3 spot or something. So
yeah.
patterns everywhere.
But I'm looking forward to your book coming out. It's going to be exciting. So
Yeah. Well, it's just a little mini booklet. I've got more coming. I've got another 24 heuristics lined up. And I'm about halfway through the artwork for number 2. So
cool.
it's a whole series of things. And I'm just somebody asked me kind of why I'm doing it. Am I doing it as a way to business development? I'm doing it because I feel like I have something to say.
Yeah.
And it feels like I ought to.
And that was that's with me with the patient organization, which is this seven questions. And then this over here was, hey, we need to get this out. And the way to get it out is through a book. The other part of a book is it's cathartic. You get it out. And, it really makes you focus and you're reviewing, you're really checking your words. And
yes.
Yeah, if you're going to, it's as selfish, as much selfish as it is the other way around. So that was clear or not. But
it takes, so I tell people, I'm like, it may be short, but I mean, each part went through at least 20 rounds of edits. I mean,
right. And then you do your artwork that is actually inspired by the thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool too. So it's
thank you. I appreciate that.
For all you out there with a book inside, just start journaling, start writing, and the ideas will come up. So
we all have something to say.
Yep, we do. I appreciate you allowing me to share some of this stuff. I really enjoy what we've been doing. We're pretty lockstep. So it's
I think so. It's I'm grateful to know you, and I'm grateful that you shared some of your time with me.
Back at you, Alicia.
All right. Well, take care.
All right. Thank you.